Let's go ahead and move on to the top Democrat, because there's still the debate over Biden's mental health and his fitness. And you know what? Who's behind the Autopen? Well, even the New York Times was admitting that the legacy questions are striking a nerve with the former president. We had a 10-minute phone call, if you guys can believe it. He was able to talk for 10 minutes. I think that in and of itself is impressive with the New York Times. But when we look at the Autopen scandal, the more information that we get about this, the worse I believe it gets for Joe Biden, right? Our friend Mike Howell over at Oversight Project, him and his group have done great work on this. And it just looks like, oh, these group of staffers that, well, they were in the room. Well, they weren't actually in the room when Biden was making these decisions, but they decided, that this is what Biden had wanted them to do. So then they went through and said, okay, that's fine. We can go through and use the Autopen and do the preemptive pardons for people like a Mark Milley, a Dr. Fauci, right? We know this list. And I feel like every time we get a new information dump about the Autopen, it's just so much worse every time.
Yeah, and this is something where, again, the good guys are winning. I mean, why? Because they're fighting. They haven't let this issue go. Every day you see more and more damning evidence that this was far worse than we know, even though a lot of us know, or people in the audience know. But more reality is coming forward and going all the way back to the beginning of Biden's administration, as we've said before on the show. So the work Howell is doing, that's the Lord's work. There's a lot of other people doing this. And the sign, just the big picture here is, the New York Times has to come out and deal with this now. And Biden has to be trotted out to start rambling, because he's trying to save a legacy that is rapidly eroding in real time in front of the American people. And this thing has legs. It's not going to go away because there are legal issues involved. There are ramifications that are exceedingly important to the efficacy of having constitutional government in the office of the executive in the first place. We can't have a president if this sort of thing happens. So this is something where you see the pushing is working, the good work on the part of the administration is working, and they have to keep pushing to bring this all the way home, because what you want is a majority of Americans, even if you were a Democrat, to admit reality and say, oh gosh, but I don't support this. This was wrong.
Yeah, and Chris, I look at this and say, even if we don't like the New York Times on the right, well, this is a good sign, because now you have the New York Times covering Autopen and going deep into this. This means that this is going to be a story that sticks around, that people are actually going, even if you were a leftist who didn't want to believe it for a very long time, well, now the New York Times is actually addressing this, asking Joe Biden questions about it. That to me shows, okay, this is a story that is going to have legs, as Matt says.
So Sarah, my beautiful wife, highlighted on Twitter earlier. She's been on this story. This is a conversation around our dinner table at night.
This is one of them.
She highlighted this graph from the story that says the emails show that an aide to Mr. Siskel, who was a lawyer for Joe Biden, sent the draft summary of Mr. Biden's decisions at that meeting to an assistant of Mr. Zients, who was his counselor, copied Mr. Siskel at 10:03 p.m. The assistant forwarded it to Mr. Reed and Mr. Zients, asking for their approval, and then sent a final version to Ms. Feldman, copying many meeting participants and aides at 10:28 p.m. 3 minutes later, Mr. Zients hit reply all and wrote, I approve the use of the Autopen for the execution of all the following pardons. Now, two things. Zients is not the president. He didn't say the president approves. He said, I approve. Unlike many aspects of the federal government, the Constitution explicitly grants this superhuman power to pardon federal crimes, not in the White House, not in the executive, not in the assistants of the president.
Not even if it's chief of staff, it doesn't matter.
They can rent the balcony at the Kennedy Center. If you're an AP, you're pretty important. You can't grant a pardon. Only the president can, not Mr. Zients. So people are happily touting that the New York Times, got the story out. But as Sarah wrote, this is simply not evidence that exonerates Biden. And its release in this way has all of the hallmarks of Team Biden soft launching, what GOP-led investigations are about to find. And I think that's the case. This investigative journalism is coming from inside the White House. It's coming from Team Biden. And they're trying to get out ahead, because this is their favorite thing. First they say it's not happening. First they say you're conspiracy theorists and it's not happening. Then they say, it happened, but it's old, and it doesn't matter. And then there's no point where they say, all right, that was really bad, unconstitutional, and completely insane. It's just it's either this is a right-wing conspiracy, it's not happening, fine, it happened, it didn't matter, and that's the stage that they're moving on to now.
Yeah, no, well said. And because the New York Times never gets out in front of left-leaning power, like they're not, they do not speak truth to power. They exist to speak the truth that power on the left wants them to speak.
And Wordle.
And here, yes, and Wordle, and their product line, their reviews,
Vacations
where they make
to
their
Iran,
yeah,
different things.
where they make their real money. But here with the New York Times, they're always about this. When it's important enough, the signal here is that it's important enough for them to get out in front of it. What they actually try to do in the article is egregious. Like if you read this thing, it's illogical. It's almost insane the way in which they're trying to defend what happened. But this is because, again, the good sign is this is because they know that this is going to be bad. They know they need to defend the narrative, and they need to come up with a narrative. This is something that I think is a lot of times I don't like these like stories where the right is trying to get in the brain of the normie, get in the brain of the normal person and switch the majority of people, because the right is historically not very good at it. But this is something that's just indefensible. And so I actually have a lot of hope that this narrative that they have to put together is really indefensible. It's very hard in front of people who aren't very political or aren't hard and leftist. So I think this is a good thing for all concerned, but we have to keep pushing on the truth.
And when you look at how big of a deal is this, let's look at some of the numbers themselves, because we know that FDR was president for 12 years. How many clemencies did he grant? Well, it was about 3,700, right? 3,796 over a span of 12 years. Joe Biden had 4,245 in just his 4 years. Now, 96% of all of those acts came in his last year of office. So, Chris, they were very busy in that final year. Did Biden's mental health, did it get better or worse as time went on when he was president? So that's something to keep in mind, that 96% of all of these happened in his final year.
I mean, how many hours a day do you think he was fully functioning? I mean, listen, everyone in America, if they're lucky enough to have family and loved ones, knows people who have gone through age and people who they love. And you see the changes, and it starts slow. But and even at the end, you see there's moments of clarity and there are moments of not. And Mr. Joe Biden did not always have moments of clarity. Sometimes he did. Sometimes he was clear. Sometimes he was on task. But a lot of the time, especially towards the end, he was not. So 4,000 and something exonerations and pardons. How much time do you think you would have to spend on a pardon before you decided this judge was wrong and I am letting this person off? I assume more than 30 seconds, but let's say it's like 1 minute. Does anyone think that he spent more than 4,000 minutes or 60 in an hour on this? There's no way. Now, I understand that this was grouped into classes of crime. Crimes that the president didn't think fit with or his people didn't think should be punished anymore. And that would be whole write-offs with the Autopen. But even then, there's no way he was doing the homework. And this is serious constitutional problem. I remember the press flipping out when President-elect Donald Trump in 2016 sneaked off with his wife, ditched the press bowl, and went to a steakhouse to get a well-done steak. They flipped out and said, this is an assault on the Constitution. I'm sure, dude. He's a man of his generation. Maybe a little A1. But they don't seem to understand that this actual prerogative is extremely important, way more important than the other stuff. The president hires, it's a massive operation. The president has to hire a lot of people to execute a lot of things on behalf of the president. This simply isn't one of them.
And it's not just Fauci and Mark Milley. Like, J6 is going to come back up again. We're not done with the J6 stuff. And these were some of the preemptive pardons that we saw, where members of the House for the House committee. We also saw some of the Capitol police officers. So I feel like all of this stuff is about to come back into the headlines.
Yeah, I mean, President Trump has been very good about keeping J6 justice in full view. And that's been a good thing. I mean, the White House has hung on to this to make sure that justice is done there. And you can't really extricate that from this issue because they were trying to pardon these people. I mean, just the facts you mentioned. I mean, the fact that you have 2,400 pardons on January 17th, 2025, more than any other president in a single term, and then you're going to tell me that he did this. What they've done and what they tried to do with Biden is and they succeeded, it was make the office of the president a sort of empty box that an administration could shove whatever they wanted through it. It's sort of like they made it, an empty shadow of a person. Doesn't matter who the person is, but through the office of the presidency, his staff and the administrative state can sort of do whatever they want. And so they took away the actual prudential part of politics. They took away the fact that one man has to be in charge. That's the way the system works. With a presidency, one man has to be executive. And they made it a sort of committee of everyone, who's on the team, by committee, ruling everyone else in America through this, this office that doesn't actually have a face, a person with a brain in it who's actually the decider, as one president once said. And when you don't have a decider, like, you don't have our system of government. So that's what they did to rectify it. The justice in the past has to be pushed. And then when it comes to a lot of these people, I think a lot of people are excited about pardon or no pardon. Let's put this to the test. Right? Yeah. Let's say the pardon was given by an Autopen and is therefore invalid, and then let's go after these people regardless. Let's accelerate and heighten the contradictions and bring some conflict.
Isn't this just the ultimate victory? His administration of progressivism, the way that you guys at Claremont have documented it, and all along the way, where they created an unseen bureaucracy that existed outside of the government, but usually still, even Barack Obama pretended.
Right.
Usually still, there was one person in the entire country who's elected by the entire country, and that person is given a lot of power. John Adams wanted to call them His Majesty, and that was unpopular at the time.
Wonder why.
But now you're actually, the person you're electing is an unseen bureaucracy of former Obama aides?
Yeah.
Operating out of Colorama?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that's what we had.
It's crazy. These people still want the rule of law. I feel like that is just the moral of the show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back to wrap it up right after this.